For me, it was like my eyes were just like open to this whole new world. My husband and I were in just such a specific, small world. And once I went, I was just blown away with like just stuff that I had experienced in my life, and then understanding him and understanding where the addiction and where the trauma comes from. My eyes were open to the world in a new way. I'd never seen it before.
Welcome to What We Really Want, conversations about connection. Settle in and get ready for a great conversation. Let's talk about what we really want.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to What We Really Want. Today is a re-release of one of our most listened to episodes. We're going all the way back to number 17, called Betrayal Trauma Workshops. Stacey and a couple of other ladies from our betrayal trauma recovery community here at Awaken got together to talk about the value, the benefits of women who have gone through sexual betrayal trauma participating in a retreat, a workshop, as a way of helping to process the trauma, the experience of being married to someone or in partnership with someone who struggles with unwanted or addictive sexual behavior. We thought that it would be worth getting this episode out for those of you who have started listening more recently. And we're releasing it now because on the date that it comes out, which is going to be March 31st, we are only about a week and a half away from our next Roots Retreat Women's Workshop, and we still have spots available. You can go to awakenrecovery.com and click the intensives link on the front page and find out more information about how you can be a part of the workshop. It's April 10th and 11th. It's a Friday and Saturday here in Birmingham, Alabama. And you can send us an email at info@awakenrecovery.com if you have questions. We'd be glad to answer those for you and help you decide if this would be a good fit for where you are in your betrayal trauma healing journey. So I don't want to take up any more time. I want to let you get right to the conversation that Stacey and her friends Paige and Brittney got to have a while back about their experience in betrayal trauma recovery and their experiences attending the Roots Retreat Women's Workshop. Here it is. It's a re-release of our episode, Betrayal Trauma Workshops, and it starts right now. If you listen back to episode 6, you will hear a conversation with Adam Calvert, James Horn, and Jason McNaughton and myself talking about men's recovery intensives. And we mentioned during that episode that we not only have a Roots Retreat men's recovery intensive for men who are seeking to recover from compulsive or unwanted or addictive sexual behavior, but we also offer a Roots Retreat women's workshop, and that is designed for women who are spouses, partners of men who struggle. Its emphasis is on helping them with sexual betrayal trauma. And so today we've got Stacey and two of our friends, Brittney and Paige, who have been through the Roots Retreat Women's Workshop and now serve as volunteers just to have a conversation about it. So we're so glad that you're here. Brittney, thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
Paige, thank you.
Thank you. Glad to join y'all today.
I think it would be a good idea just to maybe share a little bit about what it's like to be a woman in recovery from sexual betrayal trauma so that our listeners know kind of what you're talking about. So I don't know if everybody would be comfortable sharing a little bit of what brought you to be connected with Awaken in our community and to realize that betrayal trauma recovery was something that you wanted and needed. So that might be a good place to start.
Yeah. Well, I know that I've shared on probably the first episode a good bit of my story. And so I shared what, from my perspective, what it has been like. But I would say pretty much to a person, I think we would all say it's horrible being in recovery. We would not have chosen this. We always joke we have a recovery group that meets weekly, and we always joke about how we're glad we're friends now, but because we met through Awaken, but we wish we would have met at a fun book club or something. But we are grateful for the friendships that we can make and have made.
I've been in recovery for 9 years, so I probably would be one of the most naive people who began this journey not knowing anything. So I had a lot to learn, and I can just remember early on just telling my counselor, I just need you to tell me like the 10 things to do. I want the fast track to get well. I just need out of this pain quickly. I was just so clueless to what I really didn't even understand. I didn't even know what betrayal trauma together really meant. I just had so much to learn, and just having to open my heart and just my willingness to stay in recovery and learn about it. And it just took me a long time to realize there is no easy way out of this recovery journey. I think I spent the beginning of my recovery more focused on my husband and his recovery. After all, he was the one struggling in addiction. He was the one with the problem. So let me make sure he's doing his recovery work while still not even understanding all what my recovery work was going to entail. Because the focus was not on me. I was thinking of him. My codependency stuff.
Oh yeah.
Showing
the C
up.
word.
Yeah. That I didn't even know what that word meant either.
Right.
Just for clarity, when we say the C word,
sorry.
we mean codependency.
It isn't even a cuss word.
Codependency. Not the other C word.
Yeah, I remember, I wouldn't say that I was like, he needs to do his work. I was just so in shock of everything that had happened. So I remember it was D-Day, and then that next Tuesday we were at Awaken. So I really don't even, I can recall a few things. I don't recall a lot. I just remember walking in and being like, what is this? And then a lot of it was really scary. So I just didn't know I was I was very naive. And I was also just like, what is this? Where am I? What is going on? And I got in the car and cried. We left.
Yeah. I went to a group that was not a faith-based group. There were like 3 or 4 people in there, and several of them had set really hard boundaries, which now I understand were really good boundaries, but they were some divorcing, some asking for separation or whatever because their spouse wasn't doing the work. And I just couldn't even handle it. I cried the whole way home. I don't know how I got home because I cried sobbing. I called Greg and I'm never going back. And so I understand, because it's scary to be around people who make decisions different than yours. And then I think for me, it was like, oh, that's probably what I'm going to end up having to do, which isn't true. But I think that's sometimes what we think.
Thanks, everybody, for sharing that. I already am pretty confident that people listening have already heard things that they can relate to. So thank y'all for helping people realize that they're not alone. Where the workshop comes from is recognizing that as critical as having a meeting or support community is, it's not everything that we need. There are things that we can get from friends and peers in our support community that we can't get at church and that we can't get from a therapist. But then there are things that we can get in those other contexts that we can't and aren't meant to get from a support group. As we started Awaken, became aware that, there's such a thing as a betrayal trauma intensive. And so we decided that was something we wanted to offer.
The initial, months probably of therapy were understanding addiction, how we got here, and then, like you said, Paige, not even knowing what betrayal trauma was. I know I told my therapist, like, I can hardly get out of the bed or shower, or I don't know what to do when people bring food. I don't know what to do with it. It's like my brain is gone. And she said, you are having PTSD symptoms. And I'm like, that's only like people that have been in wars and stuff. I didn't have a box for that either. Initially, I think it's really important to focus on the trauma.
Yeah.
A lot of the research that's out there is showing that when a woman is sexually betrayed by her partner, something like 75% of those women exhibit legitimate PTSD symptoms. We'll be right back.
How did I get here? How could the person I trusted the most do this to me? Does anyone understand? Where am I supposed to go from here? Discovering your partner's unwanted or addictive sexual behavior can shake life to the core, rob you of your sense of safety, and cause you to question everything. Women who face betrayal trauma need help knowing how to move forward. They want to make sense of what's happened and how it's affected them. Women deserve to understand the powerful grip of their partner's addiction and how it spiraled out of control in his life. If you're ready to move toward healing from sexual betrayal trauma, maybe it's time for you to get to the roots. The Roots Retreat Women's Workshop is a 2-day retreat where you'll work with coaches who specialize in sexual addiction, betrayal trauma, and recovery. You'll learn how past wounds impact your current trauma. You'll better understand how sexual addiction develops. You'll see how God wants to heal your deep pain, and you'll better understand how to keep moving forward after the retreat. If you're ready to get unstuck from the impact of sexual betrayal trauma, if you're ready to experience hope and healing, let's get to the roots.
Visit awakenrecovery.com/intensives or click the Roots Retreat Women's Workshop link in show notes. He has rewritten your story. So the whole story that you have believed your marriage to be, I think all of us probably who have experienced this, we question all the things leading up to that, like events, or we see pictures and we're like, you look so happy in that picture. Like, I thought everything was great. And so they're rewriting the story because it's your person that was supposed to be the one person that would protect you and look out for you, never lie to you, never betray you. And then this happens. It's just, it turned your world upside down.
And yet it's not the first trauma that you've ever encountered.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we came to understand is that when I dumped this truck full of all of my addictive story that I'd kept from you for so long, that alone would have been enough to constitute serious trauma, but it attached itself to other things that had happened to you even before we were in relationship, and it just amplified the effect that it had on you. And you know, a lot of women who walk through this think they're going crazy because, like, okay, well, he did this and like I'm acting like he murdered somebody. And so just having some context for why those feelings make sense can be really helpful.
And all of that leads us to why we thought a workshop would be helpful.
Let me back up for a second and just talk about, like, for people who may not have heard the episode on intensives or just don't really even know what we're talking about. The difference between going to therapy and going to like a therapeutic intensive or a betrayal trauma recovery workshop is not so much a difference in the work that you do, but it's doing it for a long period of time in an uninterrupted environment. So the men who come to the Roots Retreat Recovery Intensive, they're there from Thursday afternoon through about lunch on Sunday. And so in those 3.5 days, they get roughly 3 to 4 or maybe even 5 months of content that they would get by going weekly for a 50-minute session with their therapist. It's so concentrated and it's so uninterrupted, and like they don't have their phones, they don't have any of the distractions. For the workshop, it is similar work. We just don't go as deep because you and I lead it, Stacey, and we're not licensed therapists. And so we don't go as deep into some of the therapeutic work, but what we do is we encourage them to continue taking the things that we cover in the workshop and go back to their therapist. We focus on two main things. We focus on trauma and we focus on understanding addiction better. So do you want to kind of talk about some of the perspectives and some of the focuses that we have?
One of the things that we want women to understand when they come to the workshop is that this isn't the first trauma that they have experienced. And when they find out their husband has betrayed them this way, that there are things in their past that were traumatic, that those nerves were already exposed. And so when this happens with their husband, it's like it's stepping on those nerves. And so I think having a big reaction, angry, sad, whatever it is understandable. But I think sometimes, well, maybe all the time, it is that trauma and then probably trauma from our past that has not been healed. Because I know I didn't address any of the trauma that I had when I was young. I didn't know I needed to.
So with what you're saying right now, it might be helpful to kind of understand that one of our working definitions of what trauma is something that happened in my past that causes me to think or act irrationally in the present. And so that's what we mean when we talk about stepping on the exposed nerve.
So we've talked about my reactivity to things and how I get angry, and I have cuss words that I say now. For years, even in recovery, when Greg and I would argue, we're both reactive. And so he would stay calm longer and had a lot more words that made sense. And I'm just like spewing things because I can't keep everything straight. And so I start yelling. And I came to understand, and I felt crazy. I will say that. I felt crazy and I felt panicky. And so in a lot of work that we've done and a marriage intensive that we went to, I came to understand that what was happening was my fear of abandonment was showing up when I thought he had abandoned me, even though he was still standing right there, which was why it didn't make sense. but he was no longer on my side, or he was not on my team or whatever. And so when I understood that from when I was little, there were some experiences I had where my parents did have to leave me. They didn't do it to be mean or to abandon me, but they left. And as a 4-year-old in the hospital, when my parents had to leave, I didn't understand. And so even though this is different, that is what my system was doing in the moment when Greg was having his way of showing up how he did in conflict.
And your current age self is not the one showing up when you're triggered.
Exactly.
It's taking it all the way back, maybe even to those 4-year-old emotions that were terrified.
Which I will say, now that I know this, I would say I felt like a child when I was freaking out, in our arguing. And so honestly, since understanding that, I still feel that panicky feeling. It does not go away. But I know how to talk about, like, hey, when you said that, I feel it, but I'm just talking. I don't have to yell and like go freaking out crazy like I'm chasing him to come back. And so that to me is a huge, that's not even about addiction, but like you need to understand addiction and how you got where you got. And I need to understand stuff about myself.
I think for me, there's growing up in my family, to me, it was a very stable environment. But one thing, when I look back on my grown-up years, it was just more of the surface level living, where the deep down things that we probably really needed to talk about, harder things were never addressed. So we just kind of stayed up here. Everybody's good. Everybody's okay. And hard things just weren't ever really talked about. I never saw conflict in my family, especially like between my mom and dad. So I just didn't learn those kind of skills. And when I think back to my teenage years, my mom and I started butting heads, but the way I kind of watched her is we would just be silent and just not ever talk about it, just kind of go our separate ways. And so I bring all those things that I don't really think are unhealthy. That's just part of my, and then when everything just, I kind of bring that into my marriage, and then we're doing okay, or I think we're doing fine in our marriage. And when everything implodes, I just go back to all those things. These emotions don't feel good. These aren't good emotions to have. And I don't know how to talk about them with you, this person who's just betrayed and blown up my world. And so I'm just going to get quiet. And I just realized I really didn't have healthy coping strategies for anything like this. I didn't learn anything growing up, but I didn't know that.
Sure, because if you never saw conflict, then you also never saw conflict get healthily resolved.
Correct.
And so you went into adulthood lacking that skill of knowing what it's like to lean into conflict with the goal of resolving it.
Right. Which fascinates me, because Paige and I are very different. And I always think about how much more godly you seem because you're calm and you're quiet. But I've learned from you, not that those are bad things to be, but just being calm and quiet and not talking about things isn't always healthy.
No, because there's stuff simmering below. And I just don't know how to, I just, at that point, had no idea. How do you even talk about this in a healthy way?
How do you access it to know even how to talk about it?
I think I noticed just a lack of really what pornography was and just what sexual addiction was. Again, it happened I was married maybe 2 years when all this came out, and I was really, I feel like 25. So I feel like that's pretty young for something like this to happen. So I was just so unaware. I do remember trying to just care for my husband in that moment. Like when he told me and seeing his reaction, and then just seeing like what was at stake if he were to come out and share it, which he did. I was just trying to like patch up. I don't know, I'm trying to patch up like these little cracks that like is eventually going to explode. And I was just very naive. So I didn't know. And so I was still trying to make sense of it all, of like, what even is this? Do you just stop? Can you stop? Like, and you really can't. And, so at least in the beginning.
Not without help.
Not without, yeah. So it was something that I was just like, I think I was I still am. I was very codependent and trying to make sure that he was okay.
So the trying to make sure he was okay, tend to his needs, was that something that was new to you, or was that something you already knew how to do?
Something I have known how to do very well. It's just care for others.
So something you could jump into.
Yes.
And what did that allow you to not really focus on?
Myself. the reality of what was going on.
Yeah. And so just in slowing things down long enough to talk about the things that y'all have been talking about for the last few minutes is critical, because don't we have a tendency to just blow right by them? Say, well, I do this and I know I probably shouldn't. Okay, so I'm going to do better. Well, but why do we do them? And what are we getting for ourselves by doing those? What are we keeping ourselves from? And so just slowing things down to understand trauma better. And in doing that, you're allowing the focus not to be 100% on your husband and what he's done, which I would imagine is a really hard thing to do, because his unhealthiness is a lot more big headline than yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
And nobody asked if I wanted to address all of my past.
Yeah.
I'm thankful, like, now that, like, we have gotten in touch with so many things. I mean, I can say that. I don't think I can ever say thank you for cheating.
Would not
But
expect you to.
I can say I'm grateful for what we have learned and how we have grown in our marriage now. I mean, I am grateful. And honestly, separate from you, I am grateful for who I am now. Like, I don't want to be the Stacey that I was before.
And I would say too, when sex is just not talked about, like in this way, and, you know, I just remember, at least for my husband and I, like, once everything blew up, it was just like, okay, let's just figure it out so then we can stop and we can just move on. And that just wasn't possible. Because if we were to have just moved on, then, you know, he wouldn't be doing his work, I wouldn't be doing my work, and then we probably just would have gotten a divorce later in life. So,
Or not gotten a divorce and just settled for
right, and just
for a disconnected, unhappy life together. Yeah.
yeah.
So the other thing that we focus primarily on at the women's workshop is helping women understand the addiction that their partners are struggling with, because a lack of understanding about his addiction could fuel either, well, it's just an addiction, he can't help it, I'm going to let him off the hook, or it could fuel, don't call it an addiction, like he just can't keep it in his pants, and just really the anger-driven behavior modification strategy. And neither one of those is really helpful for a woman's healing. But to understand addiction is not to let your partner off the hook or to say that he isn't responsible for what he did, but understanding that what he did, even though it was sexual, it probably wasn't primarily about you. I don't know if I said A or one, so either B or two. Second bullet point is that it really wasn't even about sex. It was about something broken underneath the surface. And at some point in his life, he discovered that pursuing something sexual could make him feel like that was being dealt with, or it could numb him out to forget about the problem that he had. And the sexual strategy grew along with him. And so he had a relationship with broken sexuality, in most cases, before he had a relationship with you. And so just recognizing it's not about you primarily, it's not about sex primarily. And if his experience is truly, you know, somewhere around that blurry line of this has become addictive, it would be helpful to know that, because you said earlier, Brittney, like he couldn't stop. Well, he couldn't without help, because the strategy that we all do is try not to let anybody find out, fix it on my own. Well, if it's addiction, you can't, whether it's addiction to drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, shopping, food, whatever, you can't fix that problem in isolation. But when you expose it to light and when you engage with the right kind of help, there can be recovery and sobriety and freedom from that. And so helping women understand what addiction is and how it shows up and how so often it preceded even his relationship with you can be really helpful.
I was going to say, Greg, at the retreat, when you're explaining this to the women or to the ladies that come, when you speak of that, you're also really good at helping them understand, or helping us all understand. You're not trying to make excuses for our spouses or our partners. You're just helping us understand some of those underlying things.
Yeah.
And that feels good for us to hear, that you're not excusing them, letting them off the hook. You're helping us understand addiction.
Well, at the same time, in the work we do with the men, we're trying to help them understand it too. And the protest that comes up a lot of the time is, doesn't matter why you did it, you just shouldn't have done it. Or it doesn't matter why I did it, I just shouldn't have done it. And nothing could be farther from the truth. It does matter. If we don't understand our experience and our story and what contributed, then why would we think that it's not going to just keep repeating?
Right.
And I say all the time, you cannot own something that you don't understand.
That's right.
And so if the goal is ownership, we've got to dive deeper into it. That's why, in recovery, we encourage people not just to make apologies, but to make amends. The difference between an amends and apology, I mean, you could give a more complicated answer than this, but an apology is, I'm sorry. And an amends is, hey, I want to say I'm sorry for this way that I hurt you. I've come to understand that with this going on, it put me in a place where I made these choices, and I understand that it hurt you in this way. You didn't deserve that. I am so sorry for hurting you in that way. I'm doing my work so that I won't ever hurt you in that way again. And I want to know if there's anything I can do to make it right. That is so much more meaningful for the person who got hurt than just, I'm sorry.
Right.
Well, do you even know what you're sorry for?
Right.
Well, they need to know.
Yeah.
Paige, you just mentioned what you notice when I'm sharing from my experience with addiction with the women at the workshops. When you hear what we cover at the workshop, does it click? Does it connect with, so like when we had this experience or this interchange, like maybe that's something that was going on? Did it help to give any depth of context that was helpful in what you do day to day with your partner after the workshop's over?
I would say for me, it was like my eyes were just like open to this whole new world. I would say I feel like my husband and I were in just such a specific small world because he was serving in ministry. So it was like this one world that we were in. And then once I went, I was just blown away with like just stuff that I had experienced in my life, and then understanding him and understanding where the addiction and where the trauma comes from. So I feel like when I went, I was just exposed in all the right ways to just seeing my husband in addiction, but then also like just brokenness all around, whether it is addiction or it's anything else. Like it was just, my eyes were open to the world in a new way. I'd never seen it before.
Because do you feel like, and Paige, I feel like you've shared enough to where you would probably identify with this. I think the way the environments a lot of us grow up in, we talk about somebody who's sick, very sick, and we take care of them. Addiction, I don't remember talking about it very much. It was kind of a hush-hush thing. Sexual things, by no means were they talked about. And so it's like, we don't even know what to do with these hard things.
Right. Yeah. And so when I'm thinking back to when I came the first time to the workshop, and now that I volunteered with several, it just, for me, I feel safe in that environment, and we're talking about hard things, but I'm sitting here with all these women who have been through all this hard stuff like me, and we can talk about it, and you feel safe. And just the things that I learned from what you and Greg bring to the workshop with the teaching, but then what the other women share about their experiences, I just leave feeling, just every time I hear something different, every time, just feeling so full of just encouragement and hope and community. And it's been life-giving to me.
And I would say too, it feels very safe. I think one of the I love is that everybody just comes in, they're like super comfy, and we have like our snacks that are around and our drinks. Like it's just nice to sit down. And I love that there is no judgment. There's no quick fixes. Like there's no Bible verses that y'all are shooting to us when we like share this certain struggle. It's just like we can just sit in the hard and be okay with sitting in the hard, which I really
so good. If anybody should feel uncomfortable, it's probably Greg.
He's
the only male.
Yeah,
which I will say, I had a lady once I was encouraging to come, and she said, well, I'm new in my trauma, and I don't really even trust any men right now. So how do I know that I'm even going to feel safe? And I said, well, I can just tell you from when I've been there, and I think God has just given you this unique ability, Greg, to, I mean, you just have to let God do his thing, but how you make women feel safe so quickly, it's just a God-given gift he's given you. That lady ended up coming, and she loved it so much, and I could tell she felt at ease. But that's something you do beautifully. And then you and Stacey up there together, and you're teaching and sharing just makes the whole thing work.
Well, thanks. I think a lot of times the fear it's just because we're comparing what our experience has been to what, well, this, like, I've been hurt by a man and there's going to be a guy there talking. And so, of course, like, that's going to be scary. It's a very vulnerable thing to go to a weekend like this. There is a lot of shame that goes along with even having been betrayed. You know, and some of the typical forms of shame are if I was pretty enough, if I had sex enough, or if I was exciting with my sex life enough. Or it could just be like, if I were smarter, I would have seen this sooner. Right. And none of those things are true.
Well, and people a lot of times tell me that they feel stupid, just like what you were saying, because they didn't see it, or they, you know, he said he used to struggle, but he doesn't anymore. I'm like, you're not stupid, because he's a good liar. I mean, and I'm not trying to like throw the addicts under the bus, but that's what goes along with addiction. And that's how it goes on as long as it does, is because you have to be good at lying.
Well, and that's part of it.
To keep people from knowing.
That's part of it. But another part of it could be a strategy on her part to like, there's something inside me that doesn't know if that's true, but it sure is scary to engage that. So I'm going to make a choice to take him at his word and just hope that it's true. You know, so many women that we hear from who's like, I mean, I figured something had to be up, but like he said it. And so I just, it was easier to just act like it was true. And so I think there's the combination of his dishonesty and her really wanting to believe it, even if a part of her doesn't.
Because we didn't know that word back then, be curious. You just ask some questions. I would have just asked something that would have probably sounded controlling or bitchy, and so I didn't even want to sound like that, so I just didn't say anything. If I'd known that word, to be curious and ask some questions when I thought, is that really right?
And I remember for me, like, I wouldn't even allow myself to ask those questions because my husband was serving in ministry, and I just thought like, oh, well, he's a minister. Like, ministers don't do that. And he's like, I almost felt like he had this like extra protection because he's serving the Lord. Like, you know, we're not going to go through anything really hard, and he's not going to struggle with that at all. Like, there's just no way that you know, ministry is his protection. And so that was a big like eye opener that like that actually has nothing to do with it. So.
Well, and I know a lot of people have asked me over the years, like, what would you, if you could go back and change anything? I hate the question because we can't. But for people who are in it or think they're in it or have suspicions like we're talking about we might have had, I say, ask your questions. And if you feel in your gut that you're getting what's another word for
the bleep.
Yes. If you feel like you're not getting an honest answer.
You're not receiving a completely forthcoming honest answer.
Then I say, go talk to somebody, you know, find a counselor, go to your pastor. Your pastor may not be helpful. He may not know what to do with this, but I think that's what I would do differently. I would have gone further. But again, I didn't know who to go to. I didn't know who I could talk to about it because in my mind, kind of like what you just said, Brittney, well, nobody on staff struggles with this. You know, so when this happens, it's not your fault. Like, there's just not, it's just not. Even all the things that I may have said to Greg, or I don't know, things that made him feel rejected or maybe had helped put him in a place of feeling like entitled to go and do whatever to get his needs met over here. He may have felt those things, and I might have said things that helped him feel those things, but like, he still didn't have the right to go fix it that way, you know? And so
I couldn't blame you for my stuff just because you did some unhealthy things.
And I think it's help for me. Trauma is not my fault, but healing is my responsibility. So part of my healing is, okay, that wasn't actually a nice thing to say to Greg. So I don't want to keep saying it. That's not saying, oh, that's why you did that. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I won't say that anymore. No, it's just, okay, I don't want to say that anymore because it's not helpful.
So the Roots Retreat Women's Workshop is not the only option out there for women who are looking for an intensive or a retreat or an event to help them better understand and process what you've walked through. But you guys all know about the Roots Retreat because you've all been there and you've all worked it. If there's a woman listening who is going through either the early or maybe she's into the journey a little bit more of healing from sexual betrayal, she's thinking about, would a weekend like this be a good idea for me? I mean, without this becoming like full on commercial, but also acknowledging that this is a weekend that we feel good about. Why would you say it would be a good idea to consider doing this or something like it?
I would say whether you're a woman who's like choosing to stay in her marriage or you're a woman who is choosing not to, because the betrayal is just very hard and very traumatic. It's good to go because there is work for us to do that is going to be helpful in life, whether you stay with your spouse or not. A lot of the work that I've done has nothing to do with my husband and his addiction. Some does, but a lot of it has nothing to do with him and all to do with me and the things that I've been through. So it's just very helpful to come in tune with myself. I was not in tune with myself when I went. And then just to realize what helps me be at peace, what helps me have a clear mind. I didn't know how to do that for a while, you know? And then so once I went to the retreat, it was almost like it felt like more for me than it was my husband.
And I think another question women have asked me about the Roots Retreat Women's Workshop is like, when should I come? Like, is it when I'm new in my trauma? Is it when I've worked through my betrayal trauma? Like, and so for me, I think it was like 2 or 3 years into my healing journey before I even went. And so I just think sort of just listen to what your body, your spirit's saying, I don't know, but there is no really right time. I'm putting that in quotes. It's just, it is something that will just add to whatever recovery work you've done, whether you've been with a therapist or you have safe friends or you have some sort of a recovery community that you have weekly meetings. But this is like more of just a comprehensive workshop learning. You're taking notes. You're interacting with each other. There's kind of these small group like breakout sessions. And just all of it is just excellent. And you just leave with so much more understanding and knowledge. And Greg said earlier in the podcast that you've got stuff with you to take back and unpack with your therapist as your healing journey continues.
Yeah. And some people who come don't have any community where they live. There have been a number of them who have told me that they have connected with another person who was there and like they stayed in touch for years. Yeah. You know, and that became a person that they shared the same experience. So when they talked about things, they were using the same language.
And for people who don't live in our area who come to the workshops, we do have a virtual support meeting that they can be a part of so they can continue to stay connected to Awaken.
And many of the women who do that virtual meeting have been as well. So currently we're having it at a beautiful lake house. So it's so quiet and just looks out on the water. It's very peaceful. So
very relaxing.
Yeah. And our next one is?
We've got one scheduled for October 11th and 12th, 2024. You can find out more about the workshop and how to register for it by going to awakenrecovery.com. And on the front page, choose intensives, and then you can find out, you can read all about it. You can contact us through the website with your questions. You can register right then and there. We do keep these small. It's limited to 8 participants or less. And so that's by design so that we can make sure that everyone has the ability to really engage with their story and not just kind of sit back and let everybody else talk. So it's a pretty intimate setting. It's a Friday night and all day Saturday, so it's not overwhelming. If you have young kids, you don't have to be away from them for very long. And so we try to make it logistically and then financially as accessible for the biggest number of people possible.
Right. Yep. And you get to meet some of my amazing friends. So I think it's worth it.
Ladies, thanks for taking some time and being a part of this conversation. We're grateful for you guys and just really thankful that our stories have overlapped with yours and that we get to be a part of this community with you.
That's right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, feedback, topics you'd like to hear us talk about on the show, click the Send Us a Message link in the show notes of any episode.